Okay, I will continue with the session. Hope it's visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay, whatever we have discussed in the morning session is with con- concerned with chronic toxicity because we are feeding the chemical to an animal laboratory animal for over a uh, for over its entire lifetime every day and seeing its toxic effect and also for in case of our dietary exposure also we are assuming that we are consuming that particular pesticide daily through the diet. So that's uh, that's what with respect to chronic toxicity. Now, just we will see another term with respect to acute toxicity. Acute, that is the term is acute reference dose, ARFD, acute reference dose. So it's defined as the estimate of substance, that means or the amount of substance in food or drinking water that can be ingested over a short period of time, not on the entire lifetime, ingested over a short period of time, usually during one meal or one day without appreciable risk to health risks to consumer. So that means if a person consumes a particular quantity of a pesticide at a time, a quantity of a pesticide which a person if he consumes at a particular time, that quantity, the maximum quantity which will not cause any health risk, is called as acute reference dose. That's the dose, the maximum quantity that can be safely consumed at a single point of time. In simple terms, we can say it like that. So that is acute reference dose, the maximum quantity which can be consumed safely at a point of time, not during the entire lifetime. Earlier we have discussed about the chronic toxicity. Okay, this is with respect to the definitions and how MRL is fixed and all those things. Now let's move on to the again. This is just the schematic diagram. You can see this how this MRL is fixed and all. First, we will have toxicological studies where we will have study about the we will derive the NOEL based on NOEL. We will derive ADA, that is the NOEL value divided by 100. We will get ADI. Then ADI into the average body weight of a country, we will get the maximum permissible intake. Then we will have supervised filters that we have discussed about how to derive maximum residue MRL value. And based on the MRL value, we calculate theoretical maximum daily intake, theoretical maximum daily intake. This is based on the MRL value for that particular chemical for all the crops in which it is recommended. Then we took the example of quinalphos, it is recommended against 10 crops. So this TMD is calculated based on the MRL values prescribed in all these 10 crops and based on the consumption. That is, we calculate the food factor also. How much each 10 commodity on which quinalphos is recommended, how much quantity it is being consumed by a person daily. Based on that, we will derive theoretical maximum daily intake. We compare theoretical maximum daily intake and maximum permissible intake. If the intake is lower than the permissible intake, then it's fine. If it is more, then we have to rework all the thing. So this I have discussed Codex Alimentarius Commission. It is fixed by FAO and WHO in 1963. Uh, this is the international body which is fixing the MRL for international trade, but no country follows it. Then this MRL is fixed during a meeting, a joint meeting of FAO and WHO. That meeting is called JMPR, Joint FAO WHO Meetings on pesticide residue. They'll work out. Actually, the ADA is worked out by WHO, and FAO works out the MRL. They both sit together and comes out with the final MRL value for international trade. In our country, FSSAI is the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, fixes MRL in different commodities. These are all things we had discussed earlier. Okay, this is the definition. Now we'll move on to pesticide residue analysis, of which the definition which we have discussed. This is a qualitative and quantitative analysis of representative samples, which can be drawn from the field, market, or environment for the presence of pesticides and their toxic metabolites. Here, one more term it is added, that is confirmation analysis, that we will discuss later whenever we discuss about the various techniques of analysis. Okay. Coming to the objectives, this we have discussed earlier, waiting period, MRL and all, so I won't be covering it. Then, what are the steps in pesticide residue analysis? Now I am going into in detail about the steps in pesticide residue analysis. In order to analyze a pesticide residue in a commodity, the first thing we should have is a standard. Say, if you want to analyze the presence of, say, quinalphos, dimethoate, or chlorantraniliprole, or flubendiamide, the first and foremost thing we should have is the standard. That standard we usually call it as certified reference material, or CRM, certified reference material. These are all very costly chemicals. Usually it is available just after your class. I was checking the cost of a standard of one chemical, that was uh, orthopara DDT. Orthopara DDT 100 mg, 100 mg, that is 0.1 gram. It was costing somewhere around 26,000 rupees. So that's the cost of these chemicals. Usually these chemicals, the purity will be about will be more than 97%. So it is extremely pure chemical. We need only very minute quantity, but that standard is, reference standard is essential to start with pesticide residue analysis. So we will have a certified reference material. Usually what I do is we will do all those things practically in our lab itself, so that you know how we go about it. So this is the way what we'll do. We will procure a certified reference material, and this is the one, when I will discuss about chromatography, then you will be able to understand why we need a certified reference material. Because if you give a sample to an instrument, usually the instrument which is used for pesticide and residue analysis is a chromatography. Just a minute. So we need a certified reference material. First, if we have a sample, if we inject it in an instrument, say we usually use a chromatographic instrument for analysis. This it can be gas chromatography or liquid chromatography for pesticide residue analysis. Whatever be it, we if we inject a sample, it can't provide any information unless and until we provide a standard. First, we will inject a standard chemical. Say we will inject a standard sequinalphos, and we will tell that the compound injected now is quinalphos. There are several ways I will discuss when we discuss about the individual chromatographic method. Then Based on that standard only, we will analyze. I think you might have done some spectrophotometric analysis during your PG courses. Did you?
Yes, sir.
Yes. What about Swadi?
No, sir.
No. Safna?
No, sir.
No. In protein and all also we will have a first standard, protein standard. If you go for a protein estimation in an insert, we have a protein standard. We usually use bovine serum albumin, and based on that standard only we determine. We need a standard, so that is standard here is certified reference material. So we must know the purity. It will have a certificate for that, and usually for all those things we need the certified reference material from a supplier which has national and international traceability. That means it should be a valid supply. Usually only few firms supply this certified reference material. One is Sigma Aldrich, second one is Dr. Ehrenstrofer, that's a German company. So these two are the companies which supply certified reference material in our country. Uh, I don't think there are any other company which supply certified reference material. Now Agilent is supplying. Agilent is supplying now. So only few companies are supplying these chemicals. And whatever be the certified reference material which we receive should be stored at -20, because if we keep it at room temperature, it may degrade. So we should keep at -20, and from this we prepare stock solutions and working standard. So this is how certified reference material for each chemical. If your lab want to analyze, so sometimes people come and ask, I have this commodity and you should analyze for this chemical. But we can't do it for all the chemicals. Only for those chemicals for which we have a standard, that chemicals only we can analyze. Other chemicals we won't be able to analyze. So that is with respect to certified reference material. Let's see how we prepare a stock solution. So usually what we do is we'll take a volumetric flask. Here we usually take 25 ml or we can take 10 ml also depending on. And weighing this chemical is very tricky thing, because we have to weigh very low quantity, and the pesticide is extremely toxic also. So what we will do is we will take a volumetric flask. Here I have just given a 25 ml because usually here we prepare stock solution in 25 ml volumetric flask. So we'll take a volumetric 25 ml and we will take 10 mg of the pesticide. We will add 10 mg of pesticide into the volumetric flask. One thing we have to keep in mind: we won't be measuring this standard exactly at 10 mg. It will be approximately 10 mg. So if you are adding some pesticide into the volumetric flask and the weight is something say 9.5 or 9.6, we will take that quantity. And if we add a little bit more and if it reaches 10 point something or 11, then also we will leave it as such. We won't be taking back the pesticide standard from the volumetric flask, just as we do for our soil science experiments. In soil science experiments, if you prepare a standard for sodium chloride or NaOH or HCl, we usually prepare say 10 gram, 1 gram or 20 gram. We weight exactly. If we have a slightly higher quantity, say 11 gram, we will remove 1 gram and keep it again in that box. So that thing is not advisable or not at all permitted in case of pesticide residue analysis. So we roughly weigh around in and around approximately we weigh around 10 mg. So this is the quantity. Usually with 10 mg is usually taken in 10 ml volumetric flask. Here as we are using 25 ml, we sometimes take about 25 or 50 mg, and sometimes the standards which we receive are highly viscous in nature. That means in liquid form, not in solid form. In that case, we will use capillary tubes for transferring the standard. Very fine capillary tubes. By that, we will be transferring the pesticide standard into the volumetric flask. So whatever be it, first we weigh the empty weight of the volumetric flask. We will knot it down. We will tear it. We will add the pesticide. Note down the exact quantity for up to 3 decimal places. We usually use a weighing balance with 4 decimal places. That means 1 mg. The precision is 1 mg. So that much precision we should have. 1 mg precision we should have. That means 4 decimal places. So we'll note down the exact weight, and then we will dissolve it in solvent. Usually, we prepare different kinds of different kinds of solvents for 2 different sites of analysis. Usually, I told you we use 2 different kinds of chromatographic analysis for pesticide residue analysis. One is gas chromatography, and the other one is liquid chromatography. In gas chromatography, we usually use acetone or hexane as the solvent, because these two solvents are the solvents which is compatible with the gas chromatograph. In the case of liquid chromatography, we may use methanol or acetonitrile for liquid chromatography. We will add a bit of solvent, we will dissolve the pesticide standard, and we will make it up. And sometimes we may add hexane or acetone is used for gas chromatography. Sometimes we may add a bit of toluene into hexane and acetone, because hexane or acetone, it is extremely volatile. Have you ever used hexane or acetone? Anyone in lab? At least acetone you might have used. Yes or no? Have you ever handled hexane or acetone? Hexane is or acetone is extremely volatile. So if we keep the stopper open, it will evaporate on its own. So we have to we will add a bit of toluene so that volatility of the solvents can be a bit reduced. That is practical tips which we normally do it over the lab. So whatever it may be, we take a volumetric flask, usually class A, extremely precise volumetric flask will take. We weigh the weight of the volumetric flask. We add about 10 mg into that volumetric flask. For 10 ml, if it is 25 ml, we usually take about 25 mg. Then note down the exact weight, and dissolve it with the solvent based on liquid chromatography or gas chromatography which we want to use. Any doubt? This is a normal thing. Only thing is that we have to be a bit precise with the analysis, precise with the weight. Then calculate the concentration of the stock solution we have prepared based on the purity of the standard. Do you know how we calculate the purity? I will give you one exercise. Just try to calculate it now itself quickly. Say I have a pesticide standard of 99% purity. I took 10.2 mg of it, 10.2 mg of it, and dissolved it in 10 ml of volumetric flask. What is the concentration?
Swati question చెప్పరా?
Yes, Bindu. How much?
Can you repeat the question, please?
So I have a standard of 99% purity, and I weighed out 10.2 milligram of that into a volumetric flask, 10 ml volumetric flask, and made up to 10 ml.
One point
1.2%.
2%.
No, it's not 1.2%.
One 1.03.
1.03. What's the unit?
ppm.
No.
1.0.
1 point. Everyone has got a value 1.03.
1.00.
1.00. What's the just a minute? I will give you an easy equation so that it will be easy for you to calculate. Just a minute. Just a minute. Wait. It will be roughly 1000 ppm. I will give it just a minute. Wait. I will give that equation. Just a minute. Wait. You can note down the equation. Weight taken in milligram into 1000 that 1000 is for conversion into microgram because we are taking it in milligram. So into 1000 into purity. Into purity is here it is 99. Then volume of volumetric flask divided by whole divided by give again repeat again. The concentration will be calculated as weight taken. What is the quantity? Here we have taken 10.2 into 1000 into purity. Purity is 99 divided by whole divided by volume. Volume is 10 ml here into 100. Now you calculate it.
Thousand
1000.
9.8.
Yes. Why we have a 100 in the denominator?
Conversion of percentage.
Yes. Conversion of percentage. Got it, Bindu and Swati?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. So calculate the concentration. We will get it if we use this equation, it will be in ppm. Usually we work it in ppm only. So we usually prepare the stock solution, the first stock solution in around in and around 1000 ppm, and label it properly. Do not label it with this marking pen, OHP marker pen and all, because we are using solvents and it can be get easily washed away with the solvent. So prepare a sticker on that, write the name of the pesticide, what's the concentration, what's the solvent used, and date of all these four things, just like labeling of an insect while storing and all these things should be there in that.
Sir, voice കട്ടാവുന്നുണ്ട്.
And put the stopper again and weigh the flask. Because what happens is, even if we keep this stock solution, we will keep it in minus 20 degrees Celsius. But even if we keep it in minus 20 degrees Celsius, there can be a reduction in the volume because of the evaporation of the solvent. So record the weight. One thing we can do is we can make it up to 10 ml. If you are prepared for the first time, then if you have not used it, we can, if there is a decrease in the volume, we can make it up to that 10 ml mark. But if you have used it, then how come you know whether there was a reduction in the volume or not? So in that case, in that scenario, we will record the weight. Say you took some 10
Sir,
microliter.
voice break ആവുന്നുണ്ട്.
Voice break ആവുന്നുണ്ടോ? I will switch off my video. Okay. Is it clear now?
ഇപ്പൊ കുഴപ്പമില്ല sir.
Okay, fine. So if we have taken say 10 ml or 10 microliter or 100 microliter from that volumetric flask, and if you are keeping it in the refrigerator, you don't know whether it evaporated after. We may be taking it after about 1 month or 2 months, whether there was a decrease in volume due to evaporation. So for that, if every time you take out the volumetric flask, measure it. Measure it means weigh it. Check the weight with the volume, with the weight which you have recorded earlier while keeping it in the refrigerator. So say earlier you got a weight of 25.22 milligram, and now we have got a volume of 25.21 when you have taken it today. You took it about 2 months back, and once you kept it back into the refrigerator, you weighed it and you got 25.22. Now today when you took it, it is 25.21. Then make it up to 25.22. We can't make it up to 10 ml because already you have consumed some part of it. So that the quantity of the solvent remains the same and there is no change in the concentration. That thing you have to give it. So we will have a record of each and every certified reference material. We will have a register where we will write the name of the certified reference material. We'll write the date of expiry of it. We'll write the quantity we taken. We take date of preparation and all on which day we are prepared. And next day when you have taken the first thing, you note down how much quantity you have taken, and then we will record the weight of that volumetric flask along with the stopper. We'll return back to the refrigerator. Say after 2 or 3 months, if you take back the volumetric flask again, weigh it again, check whether the weight is same as that of the previous weight. If it is not, if there is some reduction, then we will make up the weight to the previous weight. This is how we normally do. Just a minute. Oh, this equation was here. I forgot. I thought I had not added over here. Okay. This is the equation that we have discussed. Weight into 10 raised to 6 into purity divided by volume into 100. This is what we have discussed. Here one difference is that here see in the equation that I have told you, weight I have given in milligram. So that multiplication factor was 10 raised to 3. Here it is in gram, that's why it is given in 10 raised to 6. So you can take the previous equation, that is weight in milligram, because we usually take in milligram, we don't take in grams. So milligram, weight in milligram into 10 raised to 6 into purity divided by volume into 100. Then from that we prepare further solution working standards by serial dilution. This is the normal way which we prepare, go for serial dilution, just like N1V1 is equal to N2V2. So from 1000, usually we prepare, I told you the stock solution we prepare at 1000 ppm concentration. From that we prepare about 400 ppm. Again, if it is, we are using it for GC, hexane or acetone will be used. For liquid chromatography, methanol or acetonitrile will be used. And based on the N1V1, N2V2 equation, we go for further dilution into 400 ppm. From 400 ppm, we may further go down to 100 ppm. And from 100 ppm, we will go down to 1, 2, 3, etc. We usually work with 1 ppm, 2 ppm, 5 ppm, 10 ppm, not more than 100 ppm. 100 ppm is extremely high. We usually work with 20, 30 ppm maximum, because usually in vegetables and all, we commodities we get hardly about, maximum we got is about 7 ppm. So that's the range which we work it. And even sometimes we may go for below also 0.1 ppm point and all, we sometimes go. So the standards we prepare 1000 ppm, that's the stock solution. From that, an intermediate standard 400 ppm we prepare. From the intermediate standard, we go for working standards such as 100 ppm, and we will go beyond it. So one thing is that all the things, when whatever concentration we prepare, we label the volumetric flask carefully in a, with all the things. What is the pesticide? What is the solvent used? What is the date of preparation? What is the concentration? All those things will be neatly written in a sticker and fixed on the volumetric flask with a sellotape over it, and we will be keeping it in refrigerator. Then, what are the precautions we should take when we are handling a standard? First, we are handling extremely toxic chemicals in pure form. So always we should wear gloves, take all the safety measures. It is preferable to use it in a fume hood, but normally sometimes we may not have fume hood. Then also we will go about it, label it properly, place the standard undisturbed to attain the ambient temperature. That means if you have prepared a stock solution, immediately after taking out of the refrigerator, don't go for or preparing the stock solutions or working standards or further serial dilution. Keep it outside, let it attain the room temperature, then start preparing the stock solution. And note down the weight before and after that, all things told you. Then compare the weight of the standard with the weight that means if you have um, take every time whatever quantity of CRM you take from the original bottle, you note down properly in that register. So everything should be recorded. And I told you about the preparation of the recording of the weight, so that the concentration and all will remain the same whenever you take it out and preparing the standards. And do not keep it out of the refrigerator longer for a longer period, because at room temperature degradation may occur. So try to keep it at the refrigerator for as long as possible. Outside it's not preferred. So this is with respect to preparation of standards. Are you clear with the preparation of standards?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Then comes the next step, method development and validation. This is a very critical step in the case of pesticide residue analysis, method development and validation. Because in method, whatever there can be in standard. Bindu, what is the method used for pesticide residue analysis for extraction and cleanup? The common method now we use?
Quasters.
Quashers. It is pronounced as Quashers method. So this Quashers method, every lab will modify according to their requirement. We don't follow the original Quashers method given in 2003. Every lab will modify it according to their convenience. But whatever be the method which we follow, it should be conforming to certain standards. So we have to develop a method and we have to validate a method. We can easily copy from another lab, but usually each lab has its own method, and whatever method we develop, we should validate it. We should tell that our method is perfect. So that validation procedure is critical for each and every pesticide residue analysis. This is because whenever we are going for pesticide residue analysis, sometimes we may lose the entire pesticide. Even if the pesticide residue is present, our extraction procedure may lead to the loss of the pesticide. Our extraction procedure may not be that efficient to extract the pesticide. So in that case, our result may be erroneous. So we should ensure that our method is valid. How we do it? One, in a nutshell, what I will tell how we do it. What we will do is we will take a sample, preferably an organic sample. We will add a known quantity of pesticide into it. We will extract it and we will measure it. Say if we have added about say 10 ppm of pesticide into that sample, our instrument should read 10 ppm. It should not read 1 ppm or 2 ppm. 1 ppm or 2 ppm means we have lost about 8 or 9 ppm during our extraction process. So our method which we have developed should be able to quantify precisely, as much precisely as possible, the pesticide residues present in that commodity. And we should have some repeatability. That means the next day, or tomorrow, day after tomorrow, even if you repeat the analysis, the result should be the same. So method development and validation is intended for evaluation, verification, and assessing the suitability of the method. That means our method is foolproof. If you have to tell that our method is foolproof, you have to carry out this method development and validation. Let's see how we carry out method development and validation. There are several steps. First one is selectivity or specificity. We'll go to it one by one. Selectivity or specificity. Second one is linearity. Third is accuracy. It is also called as trueness or precision. Then fourth one is sensitivity. Then fifth is limit of detection, and fifth one is limit of quantification, and last one is ruggedness or robustness. We will discuss it one by one. Selectivity, linearity, accuracy, sensitivity, limit of detection, limit of quantification, and the last is ruggedness or robustness. So, specificity or selectivity. This means that, see, in chromatograph, Bindu, have you seen a chromatograph?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Do you know what is the retention time?
No, sir.
No. I will show you. I will just unshare it and show you something. You will be able to understand. Just a minute. I am sharing my tab. Can you see this? Yes or no?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Okay. This is not a pesticide. This is the thing which we have worked out for quantifying citrulline in watermelon. Citrulline is an amino acid present in watermelon. So, collaborating with our horticulture department, we did a work on that. So I will show the standard. Okay. First, I told you any analysis requires we need a standard. So first we injected a standard. So this is a graph which we received based on the chromatography, liquid chromatography we carried out over here. So you can see the x-axis. It is. Can you see the x-axis? Can you see the what is the x-axis unit here?
Minutes.
Minutes. Okay. And you can see it is overwritten over here. I don't know whether it is visible or not. It is written it as L citrulline. That is the standard which we are given. So and you can see a peak like this, just like an ECG. You can peak like this, and it is written over here L citrulline 10.213. That means we have injected the standard into the liquid chromatograph, and we detected the L citrulline at 10.213 minutes. Understood? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes. We detected it at 10.213 minutes. And if all the parameters remain the same, because in HPLC we have several parameters we can fix and we can change. So if you don't change the parameters at which we analyze the citrulline standard, then even when we inject a sample, we will detect if you detect a peak at around 10 minutes, we will say that it is that of citrulline. So first we injected the standard and we got a peak in a standard means there is nothing else. You can see till up to this time there is nothing. It's a flat line except for 10.2. So that means that at 10.213 minutes, whatever we got is citrulline because we have injected only citrulline. Nothing is there. But once we inject a sample, it's not citrulline alone. Watermelon contains so many things, so many amino acid, sugars, everything, so many pigments, etc. are there, and those can be detected in this. but we need to analyze only citrulline. So this is the I will this back chromatograph will come later. Okay, this is the sample. Okay, I will take the next. Can you name a watermelon variety?
Sugar baby.
Baby.
Yes. This is sugar baby itself. Okay. Now we injected the sample drawn from sugar baby. See, this is 10.173 minutes. The other one was 10.2 minutes. This is roughly again the same time. We got another peak. And as we have used the same condition as we are used in the case of standard, we will say that this peak is from citrulline. This peak is because of citrulline. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir, 10.213 എന്നുള്ള time തന്നെ വേണമെന്നുണ്ട്.
No, no, no. It can be slightly vary, but it should not vary. I will tell you how we will check it. See, no, here it's not. So what we will do is, what Safna has asked is a valid question. What we will do it or how? See, a slight change will be there whenever we go for each and every injection. So in specificity, what we will do is we will inject the same standard 5 times or 6 times. Understood? Not only a single time. And we will get a retention time for that standard in each injection. Are you getting what I'm telling? We say we prepared 1 ppm standard and we will analyze, we will inject that standard into that chromatographic instrument, not a single time, but 5 or 6 times. Each time we have a retention time. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Then we will work out the standard deviation. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So tomorrow I will try to show how we prepare a specific. Just a minute. Just a minute. I will show the PPT. Then you will be able to understand. All these things can be easily understood by a PPT. I'm sharing another PPT. Can you see this? Yes or no?
No, sir.
No?
Now we can see.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is the specificity or selectivity what we have done. At a single concentration, we injected 6 times. That means each, I have shown you one chromatogram of standard citrulline. Like that, we will analyze the citrulline standard, the same standard 6 times. So what should be that retention time should not vary much. What Safna has told is, say, if it is 10.2, what will happen 10.15, what will happen 10.25. It should not vary much. Understood? We calculate standard deviation, relative standard deviation, that is RSD, and that standard deviation should be less than 2%. That means the retention time, even if we inject the same concentration 6 times, if we analyze the standard 6 times, the variation should not be more than 2%. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And again, one more thing which we use is peak area. Peak area, you have seen you have seen a peak like this. I will show. Can you see my mouse over here? Yes or no? Just a minute. Just a minute. I will use it. Oh. Can you see it like this now? This is the problem. This is usually I do it in a practical manner so that you will know this. Here it's difficult. This is the peak. Can you see a peak which I have drawn?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And this is
Yes,
the
sir.
retention time. And we will measure this area. See the area occupied by this peak. So if you are having a higher concentration, you will have a greater peak area. If you have a smaller concentration, if you're injecting a smaller concentration, your peak area will be small. Hmm? So the peak area determines the concentration. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you are injecting a single concentration 6 times, the instrument should show about a uniform quantity. Yes or no? If you are injecting 10 ppm, the instrument all the 6 times it should show somewhere around 10 ppm. It should not show one time, it should not show 5 ppm, one time it should not show 6 ppm, another time it should not show 13 ppm. So there we calculate, this is called as peak area. We calculate the standard deviation for peak area also. Just like we calculate the standard deviation for retention time, we calculate the standard deviation for peak area also, and it should be remaining within 5%. That means if you are injecting 10 ppm, the concentration given by the instrument should be lying within 9.95 ppm to 10.05 ppm. Understood?
Yes, sir.
It should not vary much. That means your methodology is precise, specific. That means if you're injecting a standard, if it is a 10th minute, it is that particular chemical, nothing else. We can precisely say that. Yes, your instrument gives that at 10 minute, and the compound will not be shifted towards 11th minute or 9th minute, nothing else. It will be at 10th minute. And if you are injecting 10 ppm, it will exactly give 10 plus or minus 5 ppm. Understood? Any doubt?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. Then next we will go for the, I will explain with this, other than the slide, I will go for this slide. Then next is linearity. Linearity is what we will do is we will prepare 6 concentrations of the standard in 3 replications. You can see it over here, 6 concentration of the pesticide in 3 replications, and we will inject it. See, you will get a graph like this, and we will draw the regression equation, and the R square for that should be greater than 0.99. That means as you increase the concentration, the response should also be proportional. It should be linear. If it is proportional, it will be linear. That means if you are getting a response of say 1 ppm you injected, you got the response as 1000. Then if you inject 2 ppm, what should be the response? Ideal response.
Sir, once more.
If you injected 1 ppm, the response is 1000. If you inject 2 ppm, then ideally what should be the response?
2000.
2000. If you inject 4 ppm,
4000.
4000. Yes. So that means the response should be linear with the change in concentration. Then only your measurement is correct. So that's what we are checking with linearity, and we will inject 6 different concentrations serially diluted in 3 replications, and we will plot a regression line, and that regression line should have an R square greater than 0.99. This chart which I am showing you is based on a training which I have undergone in National Institute of Plant Health Management. We practically did all those things. This is based on our own results. We did it with transflurane, trifluralin, and diazinon. Okay. Then coming to the next one, that is LOD and LOQ. LOD is limit of detection and LOQ is limit of quantification. See, one thing we should keep in mind is that in morning session I told you we have our instruments are able to detect about 0.01 ppm. So, and we may not be able to detect beyond, but all equipments may not have that same ability. I will tell you one example. When we discuss about gas chromatograph, I will discuss you about certain detectors. One detector is flame photometric detector, another detector is electron capture detector. So certain kind of detectors will be able to detect certain pesticides very precisely. I will tell you an example, organophosphorus pesticides. The detection of organophosphorus pesticides in flame photometric detector is very good. So that means it can detect very low quantities. So its limit of detection will be very low. But the same organophosphorus pesticide in the gas chromatograph itself, we have another detector called as electron capture detector, ECD. All those things we'll discuss tomorrow. So if you are using ECD, that ECD, the detection is not that good for OP insecticide. So in that case, the limit of detection will be slightly higher. So that is the difference between the instruments will have the varying level of detection and quantification. So first let's see what is limit of detection. It is the lowest concentration that can be identified positively using a particular method in a particular matrix. That means what is the lowest concentration that can be measured in your instrument? The each and every instrument LOD will be different. In your instrument, your method, what is the lowest detection limit? But another thing is that we may be able to detect, but to accurately measure it, accurately quantify it, it is another thing. At the limit of detection level, we may not be able to accurately quantify it. So usually the limit of quantification, that means the lowest level at which the concentration can be accurately measured, is limit of quantification. So limit of detection is usually lower and limit of quantification will be slightly higher than limit of detection, LOD. LOQ will be slightly higher than LOD. LOQ will be slightly higher than LOD. I'll give an example. Say LOD is 0.01 ppm. The LOD of an instrument is 0.01 ppm. LOQ can be somewhere between 0.05 or 0.1. It will be slightly higher because at the lowest level of detection, the equipment may not be quantified accurately. It may be able to, it may give some value, but it may not be that accurate. So the level at which, the lowest level at which it can quantify it accurately is called as limit of quantification. So what we will do is here it is this LOD and LOQ. We calculate it for different matrices. Matrix means, say if you are tomato, if you have bindi, whatever you see it over here in these diagrams is with tomato. What we will do is we will take the tomato sample, say 10 gram of the sample. We will add different concentrations into it, just like you can see it over here, different concentrations into it, and we will extract the pesticide and measure it. We know the quantity of pesticide added into the tomato sample, and we will extract the pesticide and we will analyze it. And just like which we have discussed it earlier, we will work out the standard deviation, and we will also work out one more thing, that is recovery. Recovery means if you have added 10 ppm of a pesticide into the tomato sample, we should recover a minimum of 70%, that means 7 ppm, and a maximum of 120%, that means it can be 1.12 ppm. It can be 12 ppm. That means if you are adding 10 ppm of chemical into tomato sample, and if you carry out all the extraction processes and we analyze it using the chromatograph, the measured quantity of the pesticide should lie between 7 ppm and 12 ppm. Any doubt?
സർ എങ്ങനെയാണ് ഡെവലപ്പ് ആവുക? ബിക്കോസ് നമ്മൾ ട്യൂബിൽ കൊടുത്തിട്ടില്ലല്ലോ.
Bindu and Swati, did you understand what Safna told?
No,
No,
sir.
sir.
No. Safna is asking, you have added only 10 ppm and you are telling that it can be lying between 7 ppm and 12 ppm. How can it be 12 ppm? Going below it is understandable because while extracting some portion of the pesticide may be lost. But how can it go up? We have added only 10 ppm. How can it be higher? See, here also I have given the recovery can be 70 to 120%. That means 20% higher than what you have added. See, one thing is, whenever you are going for a sample, I told you, in the sample, we will have so many other, that means say tomato. See the color of this. What is the color of this extract? Can you see it over here in this centrifuge tube?
Yellowish.
Yellowish. Okay. Okay, yellowish. That color is from tomato. So that means if you prepare a standard, there won't be any color. It is pure standard alone. But if you're preparing a sample, there can be so many things: coloring material, sugars, amino acids, so many things will be there. And there can be some material, some chemical in the plant which can give a peak at the same time as that of the pesticide. I told we discussed an example wherein the pesticide standard is coming out at a retention time of 10 minutes. Agreed. Okay. So what we will say that at 10th minute, whatever peak which we receive is because of the pesticide. And tomato contains a pigment called lycopene that all of you might have studied. Lycopene is a pigment is tomato. Now we are using a tomato sample and carrying out chromatography. The lycopene also gives a retention time at 10th minute. then what will happen?
Increases.
Yes, the peak will be amplified. That is how it can come into 120%. It can amplify, but it should lie within 120%. It should not be more than 20% of the standard. Understood?
Yes, sir.
So the recovery should be lying within 70 and to 120%. There is a slight change now. Now all these things are prepared by an international group, and now they accept it about 60 to 130% also. But 60 to 130%, we must need precise data, and we should say that this recovery is constant whenever you go for analysis. So usually we say it as for 70 to 120. In extraordinary cases, we can go up to 60 to 130. Okay. So in the similar manner, just like we have gone for this linearity, we prepare different concentrations in the sample, we analyze it, we will get the standard deviation and the slope of the regression, and LOD will be 3 into standard deviation by slope. LOQ will be 10 times standard deviation by slope. So this is the data we have got. See, transflow the standard deviation is 170.21, slope is this much, trifluoralin it is. See the LOD. LOD is 0.01, 0.02, 0.003. Diazinon it is very low LOD. So it can vary with the same instrument, certain chemicals, the LOD can be very low. So LOD. See the LOQ. It is always higher than LOD. Because at this lowest level, 0.01 ppm, we may not be able to accurately measure the quantity. We may be able to detect it. Yes, we can say that the pesticide is present. But exactly quantifying it, we may need a slightly bigger amount. So that's what LOD and LOQ. Clear?
Yes, sir.
And one thing I will suggest is whenever you come back to college, just come over to pesticide residue lab and discuss with our staff. Then you will be able to know how we go about it. Now we are trying to go for NABL accreditation. This process is now going on in our lab again. Earlier we have conducted, so before accreditation we have to do it again. So we are doing it again over here. Then the next step is accuracy. Accuracy is here. The earlier what we did was with standard. Now what we will do, we will take the sample. We will add the sample with the LOQ. Here the LOQ we have taken it 0.02 ppm because for diazinon it is 0.1. This 0.08, 0.03. For depending upon the pesticide LOQ what we have got, that quantity we will add it to that sample LOQ. Then 5 times LOQ. 5 times LOQ means 0.02 into 5, that means 0.1, and 10 times LOQ, that will be 0.2. So we will add LOQ, the 0.02 ppm. If it is the LOQ value for I don't know how 0.02 I took. Say take the case of trifluoralin. There's 0.08 is the LOQ. Then we will add 0.08% ppm into the sample. Then 5 into LOQ. That means 5 into 0.08 and 10 into LOQ. 10 into 0.08. We'll prepare different samples by spiking it by adding this much quantity of pesticide, and we'll prepare 5 replications each. Then again we will inject into the instrument and we'll calculate the recovery and relative standard deviation, and again the recovery should be lying within 70 and 120 percentage, and the standard deviation should be less than 20 percentage. So that means if we are getting this, then we can say that our method is accurate. So this is accuracy. We sample, we will inject it with LOQ, 5 times LOQ and 10 times LOQ. Repeat 5 replications each. The recovery all the times, all the 5 replications, the recovery should be 70 to 120%, and the standard deviation should be less than 20%. And repeatability, it's nothing but on the same day we will repeat the same 5 times LOQ, and matrix match standard is with along with matrix. I will discuss discuss about matrix match later. Matrix match standard. So just understand that on the same day we will give 5 times, we will give a sample with 5 times LOQ, that means LOQ into 5. Again it should give the recovery and standard deviation. Then we can say that our method is repeatable. Once you got it, once you accurately got it, then again if you try it, it should be repeatable. So that's what here you can see the concentration. LOQ, the recovery is 77.8. 5 times LOQ, the recovery is 81.59. The 10 times LOQ, the recovery is 97.86. See the standard deviation. Relative standard is 7.82, 8.47, 5.36. All are below 20%. So the data does not vary much. So that is means our method is accurate. This is the data of accuracy. Repeatability is that we will repeat the same experiment. We don't go for LOQ and 10 times LOQ. We will go for 5 times LOQ alone. And we will check for the recovery and standard deviation. If it is coming good, then we can say that it is repeatable. Reproducibility, the repeatability, I think this is the repeatability value. See, even if we went for repeatability, here also we go for 3 times. Usually one concentrate 5 times LOQ is sufficient. Here we went for LOQ, 5 times LOQ and 10 times LOQ. See the standard deviation, 5 times LOQ is slightly raised. So it should be within 20%. It should not vary much. That's the thing. Then reproducibility is repeatability we do with the same person. The same person who did the specificity, linearity, accuracy and all, with the same person we carry out the repeatability analysis. Reproducibility, we will do it with another person. Even if another person comes and do it, then also the criteria should be met. Recovery should be within 70 and 120%, and standard deviation should be less than 20%. That means if some person is working in your lab and that person leaves and another person comes and use the same method, then also the result should be the same. The result should not vary. That means your results are reproducible. And coming to ruggedness, ruggedness is nothing but if someone uses the same method in another lab, another instrument, then also our method is giving accurate results, then we can say that our method is rugged. Another place, another location, another conditions, it can be changes in the flow rate, temperature, reagents, etc. Even if you change something, if the data is having the same acceptance criteria of recovery 70 to 120% and standard deviation of less than 20%, then we can say that our method is rugged. That means even if we slightly change some parameters, it doesn't affect the accuracy of the result. This is method development and validation. I don't know how much you have got this. Did you get something?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So one thing is, first thing we will go for specificity, then we will go for linearity, that means at different concentrations we will say the limit of detection. Then we go for limit of detection, that is based on slope by standard deviation. Then limit of quantification, then we will go for accuracy. In that Accuracy, we measure the recovery, it should be within 70 and 120%. And the relative standard deviation for retention time, it should be less than 2, and for peak area, it should be 5%. Repeatability, I told you, reproducibility and ruggedness. So, this is the thing which I've shown you. Tomorrow we'll go into the steps in pesticide residue analysis. I will upload this today itself, both the classes. Bindu and Swati, could you follow it?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
So first we prepared the certified reference material. We prepared the working standard. First we injected only the standards. We prepared we analyzed the specificity. We analyzed the linearity. Then we went for accuracy and LOD, LOQ by using the sample. There we will add non-standard pesticide standard into the sample, and then we will go for measuring the recovery standard deviation. Then we work out LOD, LOQ. Repeatability, reproducibility, and ruggedness, it's one and the same. Only thing is repeatability. If you do it with the same person on the same day, it should give the same results. Reproducibility, another person in the same lab, the same procedure, it should give the same result. Ruggedness, if we slightly change the chemical sign, the parameters, even then it should give the same result. Then we can say that the method is rugged. But up to specificity, linearity, accuracy, LOD, LOQ, and repeatability, it should be perfect for a lab, for a pesticide residue lab. Ruggedness and all we don't normally check. But repeatability, reproducibility, and all we check. Usually, I don't take much theory in this. I will just explain what are the terms. Then I'll ask the students to work it out on their own in the lab, so that they knows how we work it out. Now it's not possible. Okay, go through it. If you have any doubt, come and ask me tomorrow. Tomorrow again, we'll have 2 sessions in the morning and the afternoon. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
സർ
Yes.
കെമിസ്ട്രിയിലൊക്കെ നമ്മൾ ഇൻസ്ട്രുമെന്റ് കാലിബ്രേറ്റ് ചെയ്യില്ലേ?
Calibrate it.
ഇതും മെത്തേഡ് ഡെവലപ്മെന്റ്
Usually, this liquid chromatograph and gas chromatograph, we calibrate here itself. Because while installing the instrument itself, the company which is supplying the instrument will calibrate that. They calibrate it with I forgot with for liquid chromatography they calibrate it with caffeine. Gas chromatography they calibrate it one another chemical. I forgot. I think the calibration standard will be here. They calibrate it. Whenever they install it, they will calibrate it. For NABL accreditation, we have to go for calibration again this year. That calibration is a routine process. Anything?
ഓക്കെ സർ.
Okay then. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow.